Okay, so this is Mr. Ward. Mr. Ward is an ESL certified teacher, and he's going to help us with this interview. Okay,
Alrighty.
so thank you so much, Mr. Ward.
My pleasure.
Okay, so the first question: how well prepared do you feel to teach ELLs?
I feel pretty prepared. My first two university degrees are actually in applied linguistics and TESOL, which is teaching of English to the speakers of other languages. My first job working with ELLs, I think, was in 1999, so I'm coming up on 20 years of teaching now.
Wonderful. Did you complete a traditional program or alternative certification?
Yes. My original two degrees, like I just said, were in applied linguistics and in TESOL. I studied in education after that as well. Um, I went through an alternative certification program here in Texas because I did not have a Texas license, and also I'm currently enrolled in and curriculum and instruction. So I've actually been through both types of programs during various points in my career.
And what can the school or district do to help you meet the needs of ELLs?
The most important thing, in my opinion, is having enough resources. And what I mean by resources are basically materials that are relevant and that are on the level of instruction that each individual learner needs, because in an ESL classroom or an ELL classroom, much more than just a regular mainstream classroom, you're going to have a variety of reading levels and a variety of levels in English. So in my class, my reading levels range all the way from A all the way up to W. So you can't have, a narrow scope of reading materials and other type of materials for these kids. And that doesn't only go for reading. I mean, you have to be equally prepared in math, as well, because what works for one kid may not necessarily work for another kid.
In your opinion, what are the characteristics of effective ELL programs?
I think an issue that we have is there is not a clearly defined focus when we start working with ELLs. If we look at a district like HISD, I don't know if it's the majority, but certainly close to the majority of our students are ELLs, and I'm not sure that we address this enough year in and year out. We're aware of it, and the district does have things in place, but if you're not really going back and looking at these things year in and year out, and you're not keeping this in mind when you're looking at your program, then you can have serious issues. I mean, most people are aware that the ELPs do exist, but I'm not sure that there is much thought put into the ELPs when we start thinking about planning our classes and designing our classes. There are some people in HISD that are very, very good at providing materials and giving you ideas for these. The big thing now, and something that I think that is very, very helpful, is we're really focusing in on sentence starters and conversation starters to give more scaffolding for these kids, and structure and help, so they can actually start to put together some more complex ideas, even if it's just getting these things started. So if we're going to look at an effective program, I think to have an effective program, that program needs to have a clear focus on what it's trying to accomplish. And uh, these ideas, in each program, whatever they might be, you need to focus on these year in and year out, and make sure that everyone knows and everyone is trained on these things. One of the things that not particular to HISD, but particular to American education in particular, is that our teachers, beyond graduating, we are chronically undertrained once we actually start working at when we go in comparing ourselves to other countries in the industrialized world. So if we are going to have an effective program, it needs to have a clear focus, and we need to decide what we want to focus on. And year in and year out, we need to make that a priority.
Okay, thank you for that.
Sorry.
How many languages are represented in your classroom?
Only two right now, English and Spanish, which is pretty typical most years. We have had Arabic in my room before. Nahuatl we've had in my room before.
No, what did?
Yeah. But that's about it. That's it.
Okay, in what ways are you providing effective instruction for ELLs?
Like I'd mentioned before, you try to make sure that you have a variety of materials available. Newsela is something that I've started using this year, especially in small groups, because they offer the same reading but in a variety of levels. Also, at my school, we use a lot of Scholastic News, which comes in various levels, and it also offers the exact same magazines for free. Well, you have to pay for your original subscription, but after that, you can actually look at the same exact stories for the kids in Spanish. But when you're talking about ELLs, you have to do a lot of different strategies for these guys. You do have to use more than just verbal communication. You have to use a lot of body language. You have to draw a lot of pictures on the board. You have to change a lot of vocabulary. You have to alter the rate of your speech. There's so many things that you have to do to give more help to these guys. Those are just the things that I can think of right off of the top of my head.
And how do you communicate with parents who do not speak English?
Luckily, only ever had to communicate with parents in English or Spanish, so it has not been a problem for me so far.
Okay, I will be in my own classroom next fall. What recommendations do you have to help me prepare to teach ELLs?
Try not to, you will face challenges with ELLs. Try not to get frustrated when you're working with them. You have to realize that a lot of difficulties that they will have will be language related and not cognitively related. Keep that in mind. That's something very important. Be prepared to do more than just teach the information. Like I said, you have to be ready to offer them body language. You have to be ready to draw pictures. Graphic novels are something very good to use for ELLs, because it already provides the story and context, and you can tell what's going on in the story without even really doing that much reading and understanding of the words. When you're working in math, make sure you some people will tell you not to focus on keywords, but when you're working with ELLs, in my opinion, you have to focus on keywords, because you may have somebody, it's their very first year here. So this kid may only be able to learn 2 or 3 words from each word problem. So you have to make sure that you're teaching them the appropriate words to try to make them successful.
Thank you so much for that.
No
So
problem.
this is the ending of the interview. I really appreciate all your advice, and I see how you're giving me new clues to do differentiation for ELLs and really how to work with them. So I appreciate your help so much.
No
This
problem.
is
My pleasure.
all for today. Thank you for watching.
Thanks.